So one of the questions I get asked a lot is how exactly do you price your photo and video services, whether it be for weddings, portraits, events, etc. I've gotten asked about all sorts of niches. And before we get into the content of this video, I simply want to give you guys my keep it real guarantee on my channel. It's simple. What works for me may not work for you as a photographer, and I want you to keep that in mind because that's going to really help you throughout your career when you listen to any creative or any photographer or educator talk about their craft. So what I want you to do with this information is simple. I want you to use it as an outline at most. I want you to use it as guidelines, and over time, as you implement some of these things that we talk about today, see what works for you and see what doesn't. The definition of insanity is doing something over and over again that doesn't work. Don't get caught in that in your business. Find what works for you and adjust over time and always be fluid, and you will find success in the photography business world. Now roll intro. What's good, everybody? For those of you guys who do not know who I am, my name is Sidney Baker Green. I'm an international wedding photographer and I'm a cinematographer. And today we're here to talk about pricing. This is such a big topic. I hope I can fit it into a video that keeps your attention, but follow along with me because it's going to be jam-packed full of information and useful things that you may not think of and things that I just found over time, over my 6 years, 7 years. I forgot the exact amount of time I've been a photographer, but how I created my business to be a destination wedding photographer and to travel for events and to get paid for that and be able to do it full time. And before we even get into this, I've created a nice little worksheet that I've added to my store, so you guys can go download that now. It's going to have all this information laid out with the mathematical equations and stuff like that, or at least the line items. I haven't figured out quite how I'm going to do that yet, but pay what you want for it. It's absolutely free, but if you want to support me, I appreciate it. Like I said, I want to be able to support you guys in your careers without breaking your banks. So let's jump right into it. The first thing that you're going to want to keep in mind overall with your pricing is gonna be where you live. As a destination wedding photographer, I am actually priced out of my state. I have shot very few weddings in my home state of Michigan. Most of my work is either in a different country or in a different state that is really keen and tied into that market. So you're gonna wanna keep that in mind. What is your goal? Are you here to do weddings in your home state, whether you live in Virginia, Boston, Maine, Iowa? I don't know who live in Iowa, who getting married in Iowa, but you get the point. Now, the question is, how do I find out? How do I find out what my competition is charging? How do I find out what the prices are in my state? Well, first I'm gonna tell you what not to do. Don't send a photographer an inquiry asking them for their prices, whether it be weddings or events, and then just steal that. Don't do that. Don't be that person, because we don't like it when we get fake inquiries or when nobody replies to us. What I would like you to do is just simply try to find websites in your niche, in your hometown or whatever market you're in, and see if they have their pricing listed as public. Don't do anything shady. Nobody likes shady business practices, and it's just not a trustworthy thing we should have in our industry. Now, it's not always going to be easy to find these prices, but another resource I know if you're a wedding photographer looking to find prices is The Knot. Will allow you to search through price range, and then you can get an idea if you look through all of those listings on The Knot, what the low end in your state is and what the middle in your state is and what the high end in your state is. So keep those things in mind and figure out where you want to be and actually what you're going to be able to do. If you're starting out, chances of you booking a high-end wedding, slim to none, unless you get very fortunate. So we're gonna take those low, medium, and highs now and keep that just in the back of our mind as we're gonna go through this mathematical approach to figuring out some numbers that are going to work for us in our livelihood. Keep in mind, I'm approaching this as if you are a full-time photographer and cinematographer the same way I do in my business. So with this in mind, keeping our numbers in the back of our mind of our low, medium, and highs in our market, now let's go through a mathematical approach to figure out some numbers that are gonna work for us based on what we do. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do, and I'm gonna just keep all these over here, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is figure out how much are your business expenses going to be for this year. How much does your website cost you to run per year? How much does your URL cost you to run per year? And how much does your email address cost you to run per year if you have that? How much money are you going to be spending on social media marketing or the Knot marketing or thumbtack marketing per month? Those are all the types of things you're gonna wanna have in there. So you're gonna figure out the total operation cost of your business for that year, essentially. And yes, this is something you're gonna have to do yearly, update as you evolve. So the next one we're gonna do, and I can tailor this a little bit if you are part-time and you work another job, but you're gonna wanna find your yearly expenses to live. And if you're part-time, you're gonna wanna figure out how much of my expenses do I want my photography to be able to cost? Like how much of my car note am I gonna want my photography or video services to be able to cover? How much of my mortgage or rent, so on and so forth. You know, like I said, if you're part-time, you're gonna figure out a percentage that you're gonna want that to cover. And if you're full-time, obviously you're gonna need to cover your expenses. If you're married, you know, you have 2 household incomes, it's a little bit different, but I figure you guys are smart enough to figure out how to tailor that one. That box is really up to you on the number that you put in there. So now that you have your photography expenses for the new equipment that you're gonna buy, plus your operation cost, and how much you're gonna want that to cover of your expenses, whether it's all of it if you're full-time, or part of it if you're part-time, the next thing you're gonna wanna do, and this is where the numbers start getting a little convoluted, is you're gonna factor in your experience and your equipment. Well, I say that because if you're shooting weddings on a Canon Rebel or, you know, a 6D Mark II, that's a little bit different than if you're shooting weddings on a Red cinema camera or a Canon cinema camera that cost well over $50,000 to $70,000. So you're gonna wanna factor that in and, you know, okay, how much per year should I be adding onto my services for my experience, right? And that can be convoluted. That doesn't have to be something you add in, but we do have a production value when we go into our services. Now, this isn't gonna affect you so much on the low end. If you're on the low end, you don't have to worry about that. But if you're approaching a wedding shoot or a video shoot with $20,000 to $30,000, $40,000 worth of camera gear, that is something that I even talk to my clients about. What are the reasons when I'm talking about myself, I'm kind of doing my elevator pitch in my initial consultations, you know, here's another thing on why you want to book me. I come with this gear. This is top of the line professional gear. That I'm not saying that gear, if it matters with my skills, I do let them know that, you know, it doesn't matter what camera I really have, but I have the capability to push my limits and be a little bit more creative based on my gear as well. And the next thing you're gonna wanna do is factor in experience. Now, one of the things I do with all of my shoots, each and every time I do a wedding shoot or a portrait shoot, I raise my prices a little bit. Keeps me kind of, you know, moving, especially if you're starting on the lower end. And there is a point where this maxes out, especially when you get to a point where you're like, okay, I like my prices, this is really good for me right now. It does kind of stabilize out. But when I'm starting out, I always add a little bit to my prices each time when I was starting out. Because I wasn't the same photographer. I had a new set of skills. If I had shot one wedding, now I have that experience. So I'm worth a little bit more than no weddings. And if I had shot 2, well, now I'm worth more than my experience with 1 wedding, so on and so forth. And once you find that price point where it really works for you, and this is where you want to be at and you feel comfortable, then you can kind of stop adding that. So we have basically 4 line items now. We have our business expenses, we have our actual cost of living expenses, we have our production value, and we have our experience in there. The last thing you're gonna wanna add in there is how much money, and keep it honest, keep it humble, do you want to be able to make to save? You could also include this just in your, you know, your expenses for, you know, if you're part-time, your cost of living expenses or your full-time cost of living expenses, but this can be a separate line item too if you just want to keep everything really organized. How much money do you want to be able to save that year? And I want to keep it honest with you because, you know, you can write in $200,000 in that box. That doesn't mean you're going to get $200,000 that year. So like I said, keep it honest and keep it real with yourself. Don't be greedy. Don't be somebody who's haughty or full of themselves. Just keep it honest and look at where you are. You know what you're booking. You know how many people you're pulling in per month and per year, per week. So like I said, keep that all in mind. So this is the fun part. This is where you figure out your price. Now that you have all 5 of those areas covered, simply divide it by the amount of shoots you're projected to do this year. Now, I know I shoot 20 weddings a year. That's easy for me to make. So I'm gonna obviously divide that number for my business by 20, and then I figure out, okay, this is how much I need to charge per wedding to make this amount of money. So some of the things that might happen with these numbers, especially if you're shooting weddings, is that this could be, depending on your cost of living expenses, a little bit lower than even the low end of your market. And that's where you're going to tweak it a little bit. You're going to want to place yourself at least somewhere in the middle of that low end, and maybe not so much even in the middle, because again, like I say, you have to work with the finesse, because the market you live in may not like that middle price. They may be like, oh, that's not too cheap, but that's not too expensive either. Like, nobody likes the middle ground. They either want to have they want that definite answer, like, ooh, that's perfect. There's this whole buying psychology thing where it's like, there's a reason why things are $19.99, because it's not quite $20, but it's like, oh, only $19.99, so on and so forth. So those are some of the convoluted things that can happen with your numbers. Now, that's just my kind of fail-safe method on how I price myself to make sure that I have enough to eat, my bills are covered, and I'm saving money. And as time went on, that amount of money I wanted to save was also able to change because my experience changed. I was able to start shooting in the higher end of my market and creating packages that no matter what price I charged at, and this is the other point, that price there, if you have multiple packages, should either be your middle or low end package. If you're shooting weddings or if you have portrait packages, that price is what you're going to want to be able to make that amount of money no matter what. You're not going to want a number really lower than that, because then you're losing money in some area of your life. I feel like this is just all over the place, but this is how photography pricing works, which is why I've created this worksheet to just kind of simplify all the thoughts in my mind, because I've been doing this for a long time and I just keep it simple. I figure out my operation costs, I figure out how much my experience is worth at this point, how much it costs me to live, and how much money I really want to save that year, and then that gives me a ballpark of where my prices should be. And then, like I said, that's where you go ahead and you tailor it to your market, you tailor it to your specific business needs. And also, if it's not working for you, then you also tweak it. Try going higher, try going lower for a month, advertise that. You can use your advertising, if you're putting money into your advertising, when you change your prices, and if it's public on your website, advertise. See if you get more inquiries with it being higher or lower. And if you have any questions, go to my social media, send me a follow, and then shoot me a message and ask me, hey, can you help me with this? And, I might set up a mentoring session with you. We can go from there if you really want to do that. I'm here to help. I'm a resource. Drop a comment if you didn't get something that I said, or if you have any more questions. And like I said, keep it respectful. Anyway, if you guys do like this video, be sure to give me a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and turn on those post notifications if you already haven't. Like I said, shoot me a follow on all of my social media. The links are in the description down below. And my lovely YouTube family, go ahead and shoot them a link and a follow, a like. Their links are in the description down below. If you are ever feeling uninspired or want to give up on life, or you just don't know what you're doing, remember, every day airplanes take off against the wind. Live, love, laugh, stay inspired, and as always, stay fabulous. My name is Sidney, and I'll see you guys next time.